Call the February 10th Dublin City Council meeting to order, and we'll have the pledge. Amy, would you like to lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looks like we're going to start today with a special presentation, and we have Mr. Sullivan here. And this is with respect to the President's Cup, I believe.
Yes, just when you thought it was over.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to officially come back in front of Council and just give you a quick update of how we progressed with the event and ultimately concluded. I know many of you have seen a few of these numbers in other settings over the last couple months, but I just thought it was good to be in front of you and recognize the success that we had, but also offer a bit of thanks. So I have a little slide up here that gives you a couple notes that we were able to gather together related to the event. And I'll start with just the impact that the event had on a regional basis. From the global reach perspective, we had talked all along that 800 million households would be reached with this event through 224 countries and territories. And in fact, that did happen with 61 channels in 32 different languages broadcasting the event from Dublin, Ohio. Domestically, we had our partners in NBC Sports and Golf Channel delivering the broadcast to 110 million households through 62 hours of competition coverage and 34 hours of news and highlight programming. Significant amount of coverage, and just give you a little background in comparison with the Memorial Tournament, which is significant in its own right. The Memorial Tournament delivers about 32 hours worth of competition coverage and about 20 hours worth of news coverage. So significantly more coverage going to this international event. And just as a little note, on the PGAtour.com, we had 3.5 million unique users during the week of the event, just checking in with the golf tournament and understanding that it's being played in Dublin. From a media coverage, so when you look at the broadcast and all of that, we call those our broadcast partners. When it comes to media coverage, we had 567 registered media attend the event, representing 167 media outlets. There were over 18,600 articles written about the event, which with a equivalent impression of 71 million impressions throughout that week of the tournament. Again, significant in its own right. And then from a performance standpoint, we did sell out the event. We had 38,000 tickets sold going into tournament week. We all know how the weather played out Thursday through Sunday, but I will tell you one of the things I'm most proud of. I'll just give you one particular day. On Saturday, we scanned 34,000 of the 38,000 tickets that were sold. And even with the weather being the way it was, the region, all the fans turned out in force and really stayed throughout the day. So we had over 150,000 people attend the event throughout the week, which was up 65% from 2009. We did a measurement after the tournament with an economic impact of consumer spending of around $22 million. And that's not just in Dublin, but that's in the region. Majority of it's been in Dublin, though, based on knowing how many folks were staying in the hotels and going out during the evening. And then one thing that we're very proud of is that we had over 6,100 hotel room nights secured within Dublin. And I think Council's heard from Scott Dring maybe in December about that. And as I understand it, that's the largest one-month bed tax revenue generation ever for the city of Dublin. So we're very proud of all these numbers. Frankly, when we came to you 2.5 years ago, we had hoped and expected that the numbers would meet this level. And you never know until you put it on, and ultimately we're able to accomplish the goal. With respect to just some kind of ancillary items related to the overall relationship and what we attempted to accomplish over the 2.5 years when we were scheduling to put the event on. One thing I'm most proud of is that we really used the event as a chance to bring the entire region together. Dublin was in the center, but we had a lot of folks participating and supporting us. And that list included the state of Ohio, the city of Columbus, Franklin County, Delaware County, Columbus Partnership, Columbus 2020, Jobs Ohio, the University, Ohio State University, Columbus Council of World Affairs, Experience Columbus, Port Columbus, and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. I think when we're able to bring that group, this huge group together, all working off the same page, and their focus is to assist in putting on a significant event, and it happens to be in Dublin, that's a positive thing for all of us. We did have representation on a number of our committees. The Leadership Committee, Tim Lecklider as mayor, participated on our leadership committee, and Tim, hopefully you felt that was a worthwhile process. We had 35 leaders from around the region participating in that, from the public and private sector, and I thought that group did very well as representing the region for the event. Steering committee, Sandra Krasarczyk assisted us on the steering committee. That was a very small group that represented the state of Ohio, the city of Columbus, Franklin County, city of Dublin, and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. Really helped us from a executional standpoint and keep things moving in the right direction. And then our marketing committee between Scott Dring and Sue Bernice, we used this group as a method to really drill down and ensure that every facet of this community was working together in executing all of our marketing and advertising plans. So we're very proud on how the group as a region came together from a collaboration standpoint. And then I just wanted to point out some of the highlights related to what we accomplished. And we could not have done that without the city of Dublin taking the lead first and foremost 2.5 years ago. I think that we were able to see the momentum grow over time. And as we got closer to the event, this list of activities is something that we're very proud of and something that never happened in President's Cup before. So between all the media events that we held out in the marketplace, but also at Muirfield, 4Fest here on Thursday night, the opening ceremony in downtown Columbus, to our fan village outside of Muirfield Village, and I won't name them all, but the list is long. And I will tell you what I'm most proud about is that the PGA Tour looked at each one of these as best in class, as an opportunity to grow in future years. And frankly, we collaborated with the tour in a way that I know they'll use many of the ideas in the coming years for the President's Cup. So we can be proud of what we accomplished in 2013 and they'll use for years to come. And I would say this, that I think one of our, these are just some of the pictures that accomplished that kind of surrounded the week. One thing I am most proud of is that coming out of this week, we kind of looked at the Memorial Tournament as an opportunity to refresh. And this will be our 39th Memorial Tournament, if you can believe that. And we're going to use many of the learnings that we had during the President's Cup as a method to ensure that we're growing and that we're continuing to make the Memorial the best it can be. And so many of the community ideas that we had in place for the President's Cup, you'll hopefully see evolve in the Memorial Tournament. I will tell you that we've gotten great support from the corporate community coming out of the President's Cup into the Memorial. We feel like we're very healthy. And so when we stepped back and we looked at the President's Cup as an opportunity, we had a lot of expectation. And I would say that we've met on every one of those, from an economic impact, from an attendance standpoint, from a collaboration around the community. And frankly, it has a lot to do with the initial relationship that we established with the city of Dublin. And I want to just thank you for taking that leap of faith with us those years ago. And thank you for coming along for the ride. And I can answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'll just say thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, we were very, very proud to be a part of all that, and certainly the venue that it provides our corporate residents and our residents as well to participate and be part of that event and to put us on the world stage is incredible. We really, really thank you. Council, does anybody have any questions? Or Tim, do you want to weigh in on any of the events?
No, it was certainly my honor to represent council and the city as a member of the leadership committee and so forth. And I agree with you, Dan. I think that it was a nice representation from across the region, and a good group, and it was certainly a privilege to be a part of it. It was an amazing event. One of the things, obviously, the weather. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to bring that up again, but was over in the facility south of Memorial Drive, where they were selling
Fan Village. Yep.
Yeah, the fan village and so forth. But selling the shirts and T-shirts and whatever, and I forget what day it was that I think maybe it was a Friday or Saturday, but I was, on behalf of someone else, was looking for a particular hat that the team members, the U.S. team members, had worn the day before. And I mean, they said they sold out the very day that they wore them, and I don't know how many thousands of hats, whatever, but, you know, they were telling me how many transactions that they were doing per hour in there, and
It was phenomenal.
Yeah, between ticket sales, merchandise, concession, we outperformed 2009 by 67%.
Wow.
So just really incredible, the amount of support that was driven before the event, and then the amount of people that actually showed up and came to it. And they could have left with all the bad weather, but luckily they stayed and felt that it was a unique opportunity to be a part of something special and stayed with us.
but everybody that I encountered, you know, the people that were managing that particular part of the event and so forth, everybody that I encountered spoke very highly of Dublin City staff and,
No doubt.
and the support they provided.
Yes.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Fort Fest. I think every one of us heard what an incredible success that was. I mean, bar none, from young, old, everybody in between, really, really had a great time. They all want us to do it 2 or 3 times a year.
I hear you.
I've
I've heard that a lot too.
I don't think that's possible,
Right.
but it may be on the front burner for some future event as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support over the years and look forward to working with you in the future.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, then. All right, that would bring us to citizen comment portion of our program here. Mr. Maurer?
I had, Your Honor, members of council and management, I had intended to, excuse me, read or perform the argument against football at the universities this evening, but I decided instead to hold my punches because I noticed in going over the agenda this afternoon that there are a number of disturbing spots in it, at least in my view, and I want to save my energy and intelligence for that. So I hand over to you for 3 minutes.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Maurer. Indeed. I see we have a leprechaun in the audience, Mr. Blackwell and Jamie Riley. Congratulations.
Hi, thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Jamie Riley. I'm a media specialist, also known as a school librarian at Penny Elementary in Dublin.
And I am Michael Blackwell, the 2014 Grand Leprechaun. Amazed, honored, and delighted, and Mayor Keenan is probably still laughing about how he told me a tale I will not repeat because I don't know how.
Thank you.
I want people to know how easy it is to fool Michael Blackwell. This evening, I'm not here for that, though. I'm representing the Dublin Branch Library and also Dublin AM Rotary, and I'm here with my partner from the Dublin City Schools. The last 2 years, we've had a literacy event each April, and we're having it again this year, thanks to some great fundraising from Dublin AM Rotary and the library. And I'm going to let Jamie tell you about what our program is this year.
For our event this year, as Michael said, Penny Elementary is partnering with Wright Elementary and the Dublin Library to host Megan McCarthy, who is an author and illustrator. She started her career as an illustrator, and she wrote several fiction books, but her real goal is to write nonfiction books that are fun. Her website is amazing if you get a chance to visit it. And we chose her as this year's author because we really wanted for our kids to engage with the books and become interested in reading to promote literacy. I've been reading the books with the kids, and they're so excited to read them. They're about kind of interesting, kind of off the beaten path topics, like the one that Michael gave to you is about the invention of bubble gum. And there's another one about, it's called Alien Invasion. It was written about the radio broadcast of the H.G. Wells War of the Worlds event. So the kids are really interested in that just different kind of nonfiction, and her illustrations are really engaging to them too. So we were hoping that by having such an engaging nonfiction author, we would really promote the 3rd grade reading guarantee this year These books are really appropriate for third graders, but really all of the students have been enjoying them. And they're a really great complement to the Common Core standards, which include a lot of nonfiction. For 4th and 5th grade, it's about 50% nonfiction. So we're trying to get them interested. Also, Megan includes lots of really great, she shares with the students the primary resources that she used, so she gets them interested in kind of the process of research that you might have to do such writing. So we're really excited to be partnering with Michael, and we would love for you to come to our event and support us in any way you can, and we are so grateful for it. So thank you.
So for the last couple of years, we've asked you to do something very difficult, come out and read to kids. And this year, because we've got the author visit, we're thinking we may not need that help, but we would very much like your support for this event for something that's going to be much easier than reading to kids. The book this year is Pop, the Invention of Bubblegum, and we're hoping we have a grant request into the Dublin Foundation to get a copy for all the third grade students in both schools that we're going to be presenting to, and we're hoping that's going to come through. Your part would be, if that comes through, to please just help distribute the books to the kids. We'll introduce you at the event, talk about who you are and your support for literacy, and one other small detail. Because it's about the invention of bubblegum, we're going to have a bubblegum blowing contest. And representing Dublin City Schools will be Superintendent Todd Hoadley. And representing Dublin AM Rotary will be Mike Close, a former councilman and mayor. And representing the library is yours truly. I'm going to take them. But what I need is for you to come out and join in on that. Now, you have nothing to lose except your dignity. But just think, you'll be a hero to kids. They will see you up there supporting literacy, putting it all on the line, blowing bubbles. They're going to cheer you. You're going to walk out of there a hero. So please consider joining us. We'll be sending you follow-up emails with the exact dates. It's looking like April 15th and 16th, one at Penny and one at Daniel Wright. And I will give you the exact dates and times. I know it's in the day. It's probably going to be right around your lunch hour, and that makes it very difficult for you to come out. But if you could, we'd greatly appreciate your support in being there. And we'll also be reaching out to Heinz and to Chief Wu and a couple of other folks. So there he sits back there. And they've also supported us in the past. It's been great to see how Dublin turns out to support its kids and literacy and show them just how important this is. So we thank you for that.
My money's on Mike Close, by the way, just.
His money is on Mike Close, too. May we answer any questions for you?
No, I don't think so. Are you bringing the bubble gum, or do we need to bring our own?
We will supply bubble gum.
Okay.
And it's not going to be a fix where one person gets the good bubble gum and everybody else gets the not so good bubble gum.
Thank you so much.
I'll just go ahead and get those books back from you. Oh, one more thing. If you come out and read for us, we will give you a copy of the book. And last year, one of the council members who came out said she didn't get a copy. That's former council member Kathy Boring. I've ordered that to replace that. If you come out, we will get you your book, and it will be signed by the author. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you,
very
Jamie.
much.
Thank you, Michael. We'll be seeing more of you soon.
Oh, yes.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Is there any request that any items be removed? And I think there is simply the minutes. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ann?
Mr. Lechleiter?
Yes.
Ms. Saleh?
Yes.
Mayor Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Vice Mayor Gerber?
Yes. Ordinance 914.
Rezoning approximately 27.5 acres located on the north side of Hard Road, the west side of Sawmill Road from PUD Planned Unit Development District to PUD Planned Unit Development District to modify the development text and preliminary development plan regarding an addition to the existing grocery store modifications to the permitted and conditional uses.
Ms. Shizak? Didn't I just see you a little bit ago?
Good evening. Hello again. I'm here for Jenny tonight, who had a parent-teacher conference and couldn't make it. This was introduced at the January 27th City Council meeting, and I have been made aware that the applicant's representative had a couple more conversations with the residents, which was one of the questions that council members had at that meeting. So I would turn it over to Mr. Hale unless you have any questions for me.
Mr. Hale?
Thank you.
My contact has been with Mac Parkhill, and I did talk to Mac last week. I think it was Thursday, and he said he would make some calls. Whether he was able to get a hold of any of you or not, he did say he was going to make some calls. He shops at the Kroger, and at least expressed to me that he understands that with Walmart coming in and with Target coming in up the street, how important it is that they meet that competition in the best way possible, and that, at least from his point of view, as I told you all before, I did send him the plans and the staff reports and so forth, sort of while we were going through Planning Commission, so he's been informed right along the way. He was seemed to be very well informed about what happened with council. I don't know whether he watched it on TV, but he was very well informed. But I think it was clear to me from that conversation that he still supports our application. And as I said the last time, the only new retail that's happening here is 500 square feet. That 500 square feet has been deducted from the shopping center. Actually, we deducted from the retail that can happen, the grocery part of the retail, by over 1,000 square feet. So there is no ability here to increase retail in this center. The only thing the center's going to do is approximately a little under 3,000 square feet is going to be warehouse, and the second floor will be office. And the other thing that's going on now is they even currently have the need for this additional area to have things, because now they're shipping things in from other grocery stores in panel trucks. So it's a very inefficient way for them to do business. But we are not in any way increasing the retail, and we're really on a ground floor basis. We're only increasing the square footage about 3,500 square feet, because it's just a little over 3,000 where the warehousing is, and it's another 500 where we're moving the coffee shop out of the middle of the store up to the front so they can have a patio. We have totally complied. Once this happens, nobody's going to be able to look at this building and tell that we have changed anything. It's totally in compliance. It's just a little bump out on the rear of the building, and nobody's going to see any change in this building in any way. So I would hope that you all would support them. I know I said it the last time, I didn't think we'd get in the newspaper. My daughter said it wasn't very good English. She's an English teacher, but their hair is on fire, and they really and truly believe that they need to get this work done, redo the interior of this store so that they can do the things that they really and truly need to do to meet the competition that's coming. And they have learned a lot about what their customers want, and that's what they're going to be adding here. So they're anxious to get going so they can, before, I think what they would really like to do before Walmart opens right across the street with them, with 190,000 square foot of retail, about 60 of that will be grocery, that people will be able to have the new experience in the store, and so they'll know what's there, because they don't want to lose any of their clientele.
Very good.
Thank you.
Council have any questions of staff or Mr. Hale?
I'm ultimately going to be a yes vote. I didn't hear any other concerns expressed other than mine, the last time we discussed this, but, I feel compelled now, to offer a response. I find some of the comments that have been made confusing, both from the applicant and, from my fellow city council members. First of all, apparently Kroger's hair is on fire, because of this competition, from Walmart and Target up the road, but we're not adding any significant retail. So, I mean, which is it? I mean, we don't need to have a long debate about this, Ben. I just, I'm not following the logic, quite frankly. I understand that, there are going to be things done inside the store and so forth, and I get that. I get the storage. We're going to move Starbucks, 30 feet closer to the sidewalk than it is, now and so forth. Apparently, initially there was a sign proposed. Now we're not going to have the sign, which is all well and good. But we've had this long-standing debate in our community about retail. How much is too much, and particularly in the Sawmill corridor. And in this particular instance, some of what I'm hearing is, we need to fight retail with more retail of our own. I'd like to see the financials, on this Kroger and other Dublin area Krogers, in spite of present access to Targets and Walmart, and I have to believe that they increase year over year. And I would expect the same would be true of this particular Kroger. In the end, I'm a yes vote.
Yeah, well,
Be brief, Ben. You've got a yes over there.
yeah, okay. I just want to say one word, because one of the things that's going to happen here by moving the, right now, the coffee shop is in the middle of the store. By pulling that out, the other thing that they're going to do is they're also going to, they have some goods in that store right now, harder goods that, what Walmart does is they use grocery as a loss leader, and they get people in on grocery and then they sell them other things. Well, these stores, when they were originally designed, the Krogers, they had some harder goods on the interior along the aisles, pots and pans. I don't know the exact categories, but what's going to happen here also is some of those kinds of things are going to go away, so that they can provide more of the kinds of things that the customer says they want. So this is a redo of the interior of the center. And it's also driven by the fact that they know more about their customer. So there is not an increase in the amount of square footage they have the right to use as retail, but there is a difference in the emphasis. In order to do that and to upgrade the store, they need to totally remodel the interior of the store and change how the aisles work, and and other things like that. So even though they're not increasing the total amount of allowable square footage, they are going to change what they sell and the variety of what they sell and the quality of what they sell. So that's what they're really doing, and that's how they're going to. The customers are going to say, I'm not going to go to Walmart. These guys have great meat. I'm going to go get, the Kroger meat, or I'm going to go get the, the prepared foods, or I'm going to go there and get wine because they got a great wine department.
Well, I'm confident Kroger is going to continue to do well.
I think we got it.
We
Thank
hope
you.
so.
Thank you.
Got the idea.
Okay. I see that Mr. Maurer signed up on this ordinance. Mr. Maurer.
A few moments ago, I referred to disturbing moments in the agenda. There aren't any in this, as far as I'm concerned, but there are a number of issues I'd like to probe for a moment. Your material is not paginated, so I'll have to tell you what I'm talking about. I'll have to give you the category that I'm talking about. I'm looking at a section under permitted uses. Permitted uses. Now, one of these permitted uses is cigar stores and stands. And I wondered whether, in the light of the CVS pharmacy's banning of tobacco smoking material, anybody in the complex here might want to get in the front line of history and apply the same thing here. So that's one question.
You'll have to ask the retail stores that directly. We're not in a position to answer that.
Okay, so they might
Visit them.
Yeah, they might hear the question through our show on TV, right?
Okay.
Also, there's a section with 3 items: agricultural credit institutions, personal credit institutions, and business credit institutions. Do these include or in any way refer to credit unions? Credit unions?
Counselor?
I would think it's an all-encompassing term. For example, you see the banks in Kroger's and in other businesses of similar nature, and I think I've even seen credit unions in banks, or in grocery stores and things of that nature.
So you're saying there might be credit unions here?
Well, there could be. If they decided to lease the space they have with the Huntington to, I don't know, some credit union instead, I think they could do it as long as they were performing those functions.
Yeah, so-
Okay, so there is possibility of credit unions.
I don't think,
You got to remember, this is
no.
a 28, this is the whole center.
Yeah.
So it's not just
Right.
Kroger. It's, it's the center.
it's the text for the, not just Kroger's, but it's the text for the whole,
Right,
there's banks out front, there's,
yeah.
okay.
So, for example, if the credit union of Ohio wanted to come in, they might ask if they could.
If there was space.
Yeah.
And if the owner of the center wanted to lease them that space and they wanted to pay for it, sure.
Okay, good. Good enough.
That take care of it, Mr. Maurer?
Takes care of that point.
Oh, okay.
Have, in this section on height requirements, there's a reference to a structural element, I think, which is called HIPS, H-I-P-S. Out of curiosity, what are HIPS structurally?
It's a part of a roof?
Roof structure?
Roof pitches.
Roof.
Roof pitches.
Roof pitches?
It would be that,
If you're in an area with a lot of snow, it's very, very severe. If you're in an area
Well,
with
there
no
are
snow,
references
it's
to
very, very
terraces,
flat.
for example, terraces and then HIPS.
There's
So-
no terrace word here.
You don't know at the moment? Okay.
It's an architect.
In other words, I guess if you have a
HIPS
HIP there,
gables.
you've got a HIP building.
it's an
right?
architectural element that will, like a hip, do you know what a hip roof is?
Pardon?
A hip roof?
No, I don't know what that means.
It's a groovy.
It's a type of roof, it's like 4 triangles that come together. No, it's not. It's 2 rectangles.
It's like the front of
It-
When it comes down, has a bend in it?
No, it's hard to describe, but it's a type of roof. It's a unique type of roof versus a gabled roof versus a roof with, a parapet would be sort of it's an architectural element as you look at the front of the center.
You see, it's in the sentence that it lists all the other kinds,
I saw the
such as
others.
parapets.
Yeah, I saw those.
We
all
can
that.
have
So-
Hips,
staff put
gables,
together
spires.
Well, you can just Google it and find the
Yeah.
definition of it.
Yeah.
Be
They'll
happy
show
to
you a
send it to
picture.
Yeah, that's a HIP answer.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
If you look at,
They've circled a hip.
a pointer, I do not.
Now, what's HIP about that?
This part up here
That?
where
Thank you.
it's sloped but closed up toward the roof line. Same as this element, that's a hip roof.
Okay,
There you have it.
thank you. Now, if anybody asks me, I can tell
You'll
them.
be in
Now,
the
you'll
know.
be in, yeah, you sound intelligent.
All right. Another point. Many moons ago. at
Make
this
it brief.
boat-
Your time is up.
There's not a time limit on this, is there?
Yes, yes, sir, there always
Really?
has been.
Yes.
It says 4 here.
It's
10
read.
seconds to go. No.
You just used it.
Yeah,
You
it's
just
up.
said be quick, so
Okay.
what else do you have?
He doesn't have one. He doesn't.
What?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, is there anything else you want to discuss on this?
No, I appreciate former Mayor Licklider's comments. With regard to the center, I didn't quite understand everything, but I'm sure when they get the remodeling done, it will all be abundantly clear what
Very
we're
good.
accomplishing here.
Ann?
Ms. Genesee Zerker?
I'm voting yes, but I do want to make just a slight comment. I am glad you finally said that they've learned what the consumer wants, and so they're responding to that rather than just their profit margin. Thank you.
Mr. Lecklider?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Vice Mayor Gerber?
Yes.
Ms. Salee?
Yes.
Mayor Keenan?
Yes. Okay, then. All right, that brings us to ordinance 1014.
Authorizing the provision of certain incentives to Everhart Financial Group, Inc., doing business as Everhart Advisors, to induce it to retain a main office and associated operations and workforce within the city, authorizing execution of a development and land exchange agreement.
Mr. Garcia?
Mayor Keenan, thank you. Members of council, good evening. Just a summary of the last meeting's discussion. This economic development agreement is for Everhart Advisors and their proposed plans for a 10,000 square foot corporate headquarters at the corner of Perimeter and Post Road. Unfortunately, tonight, Mr. Romeo had a family emergency. He called me on the way here. He's not able to attend, but has sent a representative from the company to provide an overview and answer any of your questions. And I also would be open to any questions you have as well. Thank you. So we have Ted Smith from Voorhees, who represents the Everhart Advisors, and he can give you a brief overview.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Ted Smith with Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Pease for Everhart Advisors. Everhart Advisors is a Dublin-based, independent, registered investment advisory firm serving corporations and individuals. Founded in 1995, they currently have 15 employees on Venture Drive and about 3,300 square feet, but they do anticipate growing to 25 plus or minus employees over the next 5 years. Thus, they're looking to build their own signature building here in the city of Dublin and stay put here in the city of Dublin.
Any questions, council?
That's terrific.
No, I just want to comment. I know just casually Scott Everhart, and former resident of Little Trace, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's probably where or how I first met him. But you know, this is an interesting success story. I mean, it's not necessarily unique, but I just think it's great to see this. You know, somebody that you know, established their business. You know, they live here, they operate their business here, they're growing their business here, and you know, they're you know, taking a big stake, you know, in our community, and you know, at this particular location, which I think is going to be great. So anyway, it's one of many, you know, really great success stories in our community, and so anyway, I'm looking forward to this. Great.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Maurer, I see you've signed up for this ordinance as well, 1014.
Yes, I did. Now, I noticed that the definition of the job or the function of this group is to give advice on retirement plan services to corporations, and B, and here I quote, wealth advising services to corporate executives and other individuals. Let me start with the question, who are other individuals?
You.
Me?
You, me, anybody.
Anybody?
Not individuals and corporations.
You're an individual.
You said you read it yourself. It was executives, but then it was and anybody else.
All right, I'll take that for the moment. Now, this is another corporate force which is involved in widening the gap between the 1% and the rest of us. It opens the it's dedicated to widening that gap. I disapprove utterly of it. I have one exception. I let him stay here because I can keep an eye on him. But I can assure you, nobody will ever find out what any of the internal memos are. This is part of one of the massive problems in the country, the division between the upper 1% and all the rest of us. So I register my complaint against the acceptance of this company. And my only exception would be, yes, I can watch them from here, but nobody will ever know what the internal memos are. Now, unless I've misconceived what this is all about, it is part of one of the crucial problems in the country, the division of the country into an upper 1% and all the rest of us.
Okay. Council, any further discussion? Ann?
Vice Mayor Gerber? Yes. Ms. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Lucklider?
Yes.
Mayor Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Resolution 914.
Authorizing requests for local government innovation fund grant funds for the purpose of developing a Dublin Resilience Zone pilot project.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel?
Good evening. Staff recommends council pass Resolution 0914. Staff desires to obtain a $50,000 grant from the Ohio Development Services Agency and the Ohio Local Government Innovation Fund in order to establish and conduct a Resilience Zone pilot project to explore concepts to harden and protect businesses against extreme weather events and assist businesses in the city to mitigate, respond to, and recover from events like that. Dublin works really hard to maintain and continuously improve a comprehensive ecosystem of business services, and we think these services create a competitive advantage for businesses in the city to grow and prosper. We were asked to take the lead on this project because of our business ecosystem that we have here, the mix of small and large companies, and then also we do have the support of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, the Franklin County Public Health Department, and the Franklin County Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency to partner in this project. And obviously, its success is ultimately going to depend on the participation of some of our businesses in this pilot project. So extending Dublin's business services to create a market support for resilience will help investors and businesses protect assets and their competitive edge as they plan for, adapt to, and when they reboot from the results of an extreme, in this case, an extreme weather event. So this is planning mitigation activities and recovery activities as a pilot project to help businesses. We'd ask for your passage of this. This will enable the city manager to enter into those agreements necessary should we be successful in getting the grant. I just want to clarify, we haven't got the grant yet. This is about all the application processes inherent to that.
Council questions?
What is the time frame for the grant application approval process and then execution if you're successful?
Yes, we heard that the grant awards were to come out within the next month. So I'm actually hopeful by next council meeting we'll have a good idea if we're going to get funded or not.
And what's
And
your
then we would
time?
execute this in about a three-month time frame is our goal.
And are the entities that you mentioned as partners, if for some reason you were not successful in obtaining this grant, are they prepared to fund it?
No, they're going to participate from their areas of expertise. So that we will only pursue this project if we're successfully funded.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Dana, I have to tell you, I went through this, and I found it kind of difficult to get my arms around what the output was or what we were trying to accomplish.
Right.
Seems to me a lot of these things are things that businesses really need to be taking on themselves in terms of disaster planning, what they would do if there was a significant event. I'm trying to think, what could we do as a city? One item that came to mind was perhaps a redundant power supply. That's kind of a big deal. I don't see any mention of anything like that. I presume that is one
Yeah,
of the
I
things.
thought there was a reference
It's in
in here
there, yeah.
to
It's in
hardening
the first
around the areas of utilities.
Yeah,
Obviously, stormwater management, things like that, potential flooding. The city does a good job at that, and I think, as part of the pilot project, those things will be regulations and things that we already have in place, which these folks know are pretty sound practices, so we've got a leg up on that. It's when we talk about the resilience of utilities, and they'll be invited to the table for this discussion as well. And we do have places in the city where we have redundant electric service, so as we talk about that, we'll be able to show that as an example. Metro Center is one a lot of people don't realize actually has dual circuitry. The new substation out that AEP is building, they're well under construction right now, will provide dual circuitry out on the west side of town. So I really think they reached out to us because they know we already model some of these aspects, and it's a way to show
fair enough.
how this works.
I'll be interested to see what comes out of that. So, anybody else?
No, I just, my understanding is this is, the pilot is for us to do this and assist and ultimately give businesses sort of a blueprint to go by so that
Correct.
they can do this for themselves, thereby, and, you know, in the process, hopefully making Dublin more competitive. Just another area that we can lead.
Correct. I think it's just a value-add service that we can provide as a result of the pilot.
Okay.
I think what the Franklin County Emergency Management Homeland Security Office has found over the last 10 years is that one assumed businesses, first of all, had an internal disaster plan. And if they had a plan, it was more internal. But it wasn't in collaboration with these existing other services that you're talking about bringing to the table. And when you have a major catastrophe, they have to come to the table. So I think that's what I read, that this was really going to be doing that.
It's a significant mitigation.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Maurer, I see you've signed up for Resolution 914.
Well, I mean, well, the way I read this is the problem. I gather from what several of you have said here now that the description of business interests here is rather floopy. But the way it struck me was that business interests here are being privileged over 40,000 residents, each of whom may have as compelling a reason to get out of a blizzard as to get out of a heat wave. And I find that, don't get me wrong, I understand from all civilizations that a strong business basis has been at the bottom of great cultures. But to privilege business interests, just business over any individual in the city, strikes me as wrong-headed. I think you'd be better served if one singled out the poor in the city who can't afford air conditioning in the summer and who can't afford decent heating in the winter, and do things for them. That seems to me would serve the interest better of the city as a whole. But at any rate, I may have missed what you meant by business interests here, but it is privileging whatever it is over any one of us who may have just as powerful interest and just as powerful reasons to get out of a storm or out of the heat as anybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer. Any other further discussion? Ann?
Mr. Peterson? Vice Mayor Gerber? Yes. Ms. Saleh?
Yes.
Mr. Lechleiter?
Yes.
Mayor Keenan?
Yes.
And Ms. Schmidt Zerker?
Yes.
Okay, under other, we have an application for placement of farmland in an agricultural district. Floyd Miller and Joyce Miller, 60.422 acres of land located at 5274 Cosgray Road, parcel number 274.
This is a procedural thing that we need to do. This land, the staff recommends that you approve this. This land has been for many years in the agricultural district designation, and this is just a renewal of it. And it was interesting because we've, I think, done one other one of these, and we're going to look back and see if we have more, just because we want to check. But it provides the couple here that is farming this land a little added protection if there is an assessment for water, sewer, or an eminent domain. And it's already in there, and we would recommend that you do it. Thank you.
This is a housekeeping item primarily?
Yes,
because
it
it should have been done some time ago.
Well, it's supposed to be renewed every 5 years.
Every okay.
That's correct.
I
Absolutely
see
correct.
the Millers are here. Would they like to address the council, or not necessary?
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I just wanted to ask, first of all.
Yes, sir.
Maybe we don't know. As far as we know, this is our initial acceptance?
No, it's already been in, it has already been in the district since 2005.
Well, I understand that, but we don't have any record of
No,
Dublin's
we do not have any record of it.
No, and I'm sure based upon when it was originally approved was probably prior to it being annexed into the city of Dublin.
Okay.
That's why we wouldn't have the records. It's interesting that you raise this, Tim, because when it came up, we did one of these for Mr. McDowell years ago, I believe. This isn't CUAV, this is just added protection for somebody farming. And that's the only other one we can think of, but we are going to do a search. We've talked to Ann. We are going to do a search because just in case there's other land in areas where we might be growing, we want to be careful what, there are procedures to deny it. We don't think they're applicable here.
Well, let me ask a follow-up question then. Do we know, or could we find out, are there any number of acceptances, and it's probably, you know, a matter of, you know, examining these things on a case-by-case basis, but could any number of acceptances prevent a future rejection?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
I mean, who
No,
knows?
because of
5 years
the-
from now, 10 years from now?
No,
you
there's
know.
a very detailed standard that must be followed, and I could go through them all. It's in the memo.
Okay.
But I do not believe that the precedent setting, and if 5 years from now we want not to do this, we would have the option to do that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
What is the minimum acreage to apply for one of these, just out of curiosity? Do you know that?
I do not know. I can find out for you.
We'll get it at the next meeting.
Thank
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ann?
Ms. Salee?
Yes.
Mayor Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Leckleyder?
Yes.
Dana, we have the viability and competitiveness study.
Good evening again. No formal presentation tonight, just a few comments. The Planning and Economic Development have undertaken a viability and competitiveness study. This was focusing on 2 of our 7 business districts, the Metro District and then the Blazer Research District. You may recall that this study was budgeted for in the 2013 budget, and we enlisted the assistance of a company called Planning Next, formerly ACP, who did a lot of work with the city's community plans in the past, for their assistance in this analysis. The study provides council with an in-depth view of these 2 office districts as they exist today, provides a competitiveness analysis and an assessment of current regional and national trends. The study also includes some case studies from other parts of the country demonstrating some of the actions that are being taken in similar suburban office settings to keep them competitive. The study's assessment of these 2 office districts is by no means bleak, so I want to make sure everyone understands that. But it does recognize that we probably should continue, as we always have, to set the conditions to keep our office districts competitive into the future. And these legacy office districts that we're talking about have certainly served as an economic center for the city of Dublin, not to mention that they've set a great example for the rest of the region over the years and set a pretty high bar for competition. Staff's primary goal was to advance the study's initial findings to you regarding these 2 legacy office parks and their viability and competitiveness. And we anticipate this would be the first step of a dialogue among council and between council and staff. We're not, as I said, we're not presenting any specific recommendations at this time. In fact, I realize you just got this a few days ago. I wanted to give you time to read it. There's a lot of resources that were referenced as part of this study. Didn't know if you wanted to take time to peruse those and read them as well, do a little research on your own, if you'd like to. So I wanted to give you time to read it. So we didn't come prepared tonight to give you a significant presentation. We would look forward to doing more research if you need it, more analysis, and work with you regarding potential recommendations in keeping these office parks competitive well into the future. That's all I have.
Very good. Council? Questions?
I thought it was an excellent summary, and I would like to get on the calendar as soon as possible, the recommendation here about having us have a work session where we can really have a engaged dialogue about their findings, so that we can really, even though at this point the staff didn't give us recommendations, I think we quickly need to get to the strategy stage and get on the record things that we do want to be doing in the next 24 months or whatever time period it is. And I think it demonstrates that, you know, we're forward-thinking here, but we need to be forward-thinking even a few years ago, you know, because we're all already challenged by some of our competitiveness with other communities now. But I would like to get on the calendar anyway, work session for a comprehensive dialogue about the things that some seem like things easy to do, you know, where other things would call for a lot more policy discussion. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I just had a couple of thoughts as I was reading through. One, talking about the buildings being relatively old and tired, and I took that to mean somewhat architecturally, appearance-wise, they're very dated. And I thought that that was, it should really be informing our discussion and our decisions about architecture for the Bridge Street corridor. Some things that are a little bit different, more modern, more, I don't know, spare. I'm not an architect, so I don't know all the terms. But some of the buildings that we've seen and, on our field trip, we said, this architecture's not really what we want. It's not classic, timeless, all those words that we use to describe. And when I look at some of the buildings in Metro Center, I can see it's like you could tell exactly when that was built. Time frame wise, you can look at that and see, that was the style of the day. And I'm thinking maybe we want to be looking at things that are a little more timeless going forward. Sort of look at, well, what did we do wrong here? These are beautiful buildings. They're, they were at their time. I think you get my point. Second thing, in talking about the amenities that we want close to and perhaps mixed in with some of these areas are the very things that we're talking about for the Bridge Street corridor. And I kept hearing transit, transit, transit. And I know that we have had limited success, and obviously it's market-driven, so there's not a lot we can do as far as code is concerned. But I keep thinking about, within our own city, maybe some sort of a transit service would be important to establish and think about for these areas and for Bridge Street, because and I have no idea how much it would cost. And so that's what I guess I'm asking my colleagues: if is this something that we should explore? Is this the right time to start talking about it and thinking about it? Or is it something that's 10, 15, 20 years down the road we're going to be interested in doing that? I don't know the answer, but I guess I'd be interested in more of a dialogue with staff on that if the rest of council.
Maybe at our work session on this would be good.
Yeah, but I mean, if you could bring us more information so we could talk about.
And we've had that discussion internally too. So
yeah, is this
we'll
anything? Is this
definitely
something
tee
that's
that up.
even feasible? And then have tie-ins to where CODA serves us, because we do have bus lines that come up here. It's just a matter of maybe we connect to one of the expresses and some of the other local CODA stops as well. So those were just two things that jumped out at me for our discussion coming forward. And I appreciate all the links I'm looking forward to, and I didn't have time. I went to a couple of them, but really good, fascinating histories and lots of good information. I appreciate that.
I would only add, if I may, when we do talk about age, architecture obviously is one that pops out, but it's just the age of the buildings and the cost associated with maintaining those buildings.
Right, obviously
HVAC replacement, life cycle replacements, and how that's affecting lease rates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we want to be careful about whatever timelessness architect means, because these are 30-some-year-old buildings, so they certainly served the business community well for a long period of time. Right. We're in a transition now about the way business is actually done in the country. And historically, you probably see that happens every 35 to 50 years. So, I just don't want us to go off thinking that there's a model that's going to be 100 years from now. And like you're saying, they did talk a lot about the cost of these buildings to operate them, and now, there's so much better systems. But I think those are some of the policy issues that we could discuss about what role, if any, the government might play in assisting in upgrading the HVACs or whatever.
I see the parking ratios continues to raise its head, and that's all part of how businesses are doing business today. Putting more people in the same space, and you don't need the storage capability you had at one point. It's all digitized. I know even in our own office, we've eliminated a lot of file cabinets. It's all scanned and digitized. So those are all important things we'll look at. Anybody else? Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Staff comments, Marcia?
Yeah, a couple items. The first item, everybody's well aware of the miserable weather that we've been experiencing over the last 6 to 8 weeks. It seems like any nice winters that we've had, we are now paying for them. So I wanted to ask Megan O'Callahan, the Director of Public Service, tonight to just give you a brief update on some of the things that have been going on and issues of supply and things like that. Megan?
Thank you. Good evening, council members.
Good evening, Megan.
As Marcia mentioned, we have had a very busy and challenging snow season thus far this year. We have just completed, wrapped up our 19th snow event for the season, which exceeds the number of snow events we had in all of last season. Another statistics, our costs associated with managing these events have already exceeded the costs that we expended in all of last season by $400,000. As far as this most recent event, this event was particularly challenging because, as you're aware, we had quite a bit of accumulation Tuesday night, and then on top of all that accumulation, early Wednesday morning, we had that freezing rain, which really packed down all that snow, and then once the traffic got on it early Wednesday morning during rush hour, that packed it down even more so. So it was challenging. As a result, it ended up taking us longer than typical to get to the residential streets. And typically, it would take us approximately or a maximum of 24 hours to complete the entire city. So one round of the entire city we would complete within 24 hours. However, due to the nature of this storm and the complexities there, it ended up taking us approximately 39 hours to complete the entire city. Also, in addition to all that, we had extremely cold temperatures, and in extremely cold temperatures, salt is not as effective, which that adds another complexity to it. Having mentioned salt, I'm sure you've all seen in the media that there is a shortage, and suppliers are having trouble keeping up with the demand. Good news is we do have salt. We have been very diligently calling Cargill every day to check on our orders, and throughout the day, we see a few truckloads trickle in. So we've been consistently getting deliveries, although they are very small in comparison to what we would typically expect. At least we are seeing salt come in. So they're keeping us supplied, and we do have outstanding orders with the supplier as well. So we will keep on top of that with Cargill, make sure that they keep us in mind and we keep getting those deliveries. I mentioned that it took us 39 hours to get through the entire city this past storm. As a result, we did receive some inquiries from residents inquiring about the status of primarily residential streets they were checking on. So we wanted to take this opportunity to share our policies with regard to the order of priority in which we treat our streets. The order of priority is determined by traffic volume and speeds. So higher priority are those streets that have higher traffic volume, more cars, and higher speeds. And the reason for that is safety concerns. We want to make sure that we treat those streets that have higher risk for accidents. So having said that, we start our operations by treating primary streets first, which are major arteries and streets with dangerous hills and curves. Some examples of those would be Dublin Road, Muirfield, Riverside. Once we complete the primaries, and sometimes that can take a while because it'll continue to snow, so we have to go back and start over with the primaries. But once it stops snowing and once we've completed all the primaries once, only then do we move on to the secondary routes. Secondaries are main roads through subdivisions and streets connecting 2 or more primary streets, such as Hannah Hills, Innovation, and Earlington. Those are some examples of secondaries. Once we complete primaries and secondaries, then we move on to residential streets, and those include courts, cul-de-sacs, alleys, all the other streets. Examples of those would be Forest Run, Haverhill Drive, and streets like that. So that's our order priority. We believe there's sound logic behind the order in which we treat our streets. More good news is that we stay on top of the forecast, and we don't see any snow in the forecast right now until Friday. So our crews are resting. Lastly, I would like to thank all the crews that are involved in fighting the storms. Our snow warriors, they do a great job. They work weekend. This season, it seems like the storms are all on weekends at night, so they've all been working very long hours. And that includes employees in streets and utilities, parks, fleet, and facilities. So it's a great team effort to get the storms under control. So I would like to thank them. And then I would also like to thank the residents for their patience and cooperation, because I know it can be frustrating. We do our best. I think we do a good job, but we do appreciate their patience and cooperation.
Thank you, Megan. I think to some extent we've spoiled our residents over the years, so we do appreciate it. Council, I think I can speak on behalf of everybody, is well aware of the extra effort, and we're all very proud of what what you have done and accomplished. We too have received a few emails. I think each one of us, as we have the opportunity, try and give that explanation that you gave us today, and you know, with respect to the primary, secondary, tertiary roads and the priority. So it is tough. I know they've been very busy, and we give them our heartfelt thank you for all those efforts. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Very good. That brings us to council.
Mayor, one more item.
Yeah.
We also have had discussions on Bridge Street and upcoming presentations and videos. We've been working on a series of short videos to address some of the concerns and main themes or topics that we've heard on Bridge Street. Some of those are the items that come up as frequently asked questions, and we have fact sheets that are out on the website. So today, one of the things, I went in and looked at our most recent information and provided that at your desk this evening. There's a lot of good, detailed information on a lot of the questions I'm sure you hear. And so we'll be looking to address some of those specific areas. The first one is on economic development. When we first started out with Bridge Street, our main purpose was to make sure that we remain competitive from an economic development standpoint. And some of the things we heard in our viability and competitiveness report proves this out. So we have that video that we're going to be having at the State of the City that will provide some additional information, and we'll show you a clip of that here shortly. A second area that we will be having information on is the demographics and housing trends that relate specific to Central Ohio. A lot of the information that you've gotten in the past has related to national trends. So we'll have that information, and some of that is based upon the discussions that we had with Dr. Nelson, who spoke at the Columbus Metropolitan Club a month or so ago. So he provided some good information. Also, there seems to be a lot of questions and concerns related to traffic. And the first one, the roundabout, we're currently working with a company to do a simulation of the roundabout, how that works in comparison to the current existing conditions that we have today. And there's also a memo in your packet this evening that provides some of the historical background on the how the roundabout was chosen by City Council a couple years ago. So that information's in there, and we'll also to provide that to the residents that had those questions. Traffic in general, we currently, when we did our analysis that we did in Bridge Street for all the different utilities and traffic, Nelson Nygaard was the company that we used, and they looked at our roadway systems based upon build-out. We are now also working and getting information on incremental build-out and the impacts on the different infrastructure and key intersections. So we'll be having that information for council shortly, and we'll schedule a meeting for that. And then we also, the preliminary engineering work that we've been doing since last May, we've gotten their final drafts on that, and we've been working through those to determine information that we need from them, and then we'll get additional information put together and presented to council at a council meeting. And then also, this is one that will probably take a work study or a work session to go into more details. So some of these items I know are going to be discussed at goal setting, and then also the state of the city. So for the state of the city, also as a teaser or information out there for part of what we'll be showing in State of the City on the Bridge Street update, we have a really quick clip of some information that you're going to see from some of our business leaders.
As we bring new employees, or we're trying to retain employees, they want to have places that are very attractive to them. They want the right prices, they want places they can walk, they can go to retail, they can go to restaurants.
They're going to see a community that is looking into the future.
More and more people want to live in neighborhoods and communities that have diverse housing stock.
I want to live in a community where I can rent, where I can have a condo, where I can, if I decide I want to stay, upgrade.
This is a draw to get young and talented people hired in here.
It would be awesome to be able to quickly access everything I would need and be able to walk.
The market is changing, people are changing. We're seeing communities try to get ahead of those changes.
Ideally, they would like to live in a location where they could walk to work.
If you build it, will they come? Yes.
So we'll have longer videos at State of the City, and then all the videos for these different series will be out on the website for people to look at. And what we tried to look at in this area is to get companies or individuals that represent regional, local, national businesses that we have here in Dublin to express why we need Bridge Street in order for them to continue to provide the workforce that they need.
Very good. Do it quickly. I'm getting older quicker, and I need one of those places.
I understand.
Okay. All right.
Coming up out of the ground.
I hear
Don't
you.
make it that way. The next step's ready.
Thank you. Council Roundtable. Greg?
That's fantastic, Marcia. Thank you for that. I think that's exactly the kind of insight that will be helpful. A couple of comments on some of the information you guys put in our packets that I really appreciated. Chief, thanks for all the information about the officers and their recognitions and awards. That's fantastic. I'm sure those are all very well deserved. I appreciate the sidewalks maintenance program schedule. I think Paul was maybe forwarded that on to us. That is sort of the very, very helpful information that we can forward on to people when this ice eventually melts and we start to get the sidewalks constructed. Just to echo about the Fest, excuse me, that Dan Sullivan was in here, talked about the international success that President's Club was. And the Fest, we walked from our house, my family walked down, and it just felt like a very small, intimate environment, which was kind of unusual in the middle of such a big event, but I think it was fantastic. So the more we can do that, the better. Last Wednesday, Marilee and I went with Paul and the staff over to Scioto High School and had a meeting with the residents about Emerald Parkway 8. I think it's another example how we have gotten used to a staff that supplies a lot of information, does a fantastic job of it. It was the night of the snowstorm, and the whole staff was there, and all of the questions were, at least, if they weren't answered, they were addressed. And we will get answers to them. So I very much appreciate all the staff's efforts in that regard. That's all.
Thank you. Amy?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilee?
How long did you say the new car dealership is going to be at the Post Road Old Mag site?
I don't know that we have a time frame. I know what they're doing is looking at a site until their chosen site is built, and they've selected their site, but I don't know their time frame on construction. We can see what we can find out on the actual time frame.
This area, formerly we talked about the redirection of France Road and everything, or 161 or whatever. Is this still on the books that we will be doing something in the future there?
Yeah, as far as the realignment, we had talked about the realignment of Post Road, and that is still something that's reflected in our thoroughfare plan. And we're still in the process of the intersection at France 161. That's still an intersection that we continue to evaluate. Some of the preliminary or engineering that we've completed in the past will need to be updated based upon the 270-33 interchange, but those areas will still be reflected as they have been in the past. And right now we don't have any time frame for those, either the relocation or the construction at that intersection.
I too wanted to just say congratulations to all the members of the police force that were recognized, and thanks for sharing that with us, because they certainly were well deserved. Last week I had an last Thursday had an opportunity to attend the P&Z meeting, and for the purposes of having them for me to review with them the code of conduct and asking them to sign it. They had not been aware at all that we were doing this, which was a concern to me, that it seemed like the staff even had been unaware of this. So that's just something in the future we need to make sure as we develop different policies at a council level that they're communicated effectively to the staff that are ultimately not responsible for the implementation of it, but would certainly be giving us feedback once we implement whatever that might be. P&Z did have a couple questions. I don't know if they all ended up signing it. I just asked them to sign it and turn them in to you. So But they actually have a document of rules and regulations, which I believe is required actually by our charter that this particular commission develop. And they wondered why this couldn't be incorporated into that, so that they would ultimately only have one document to sign. But this was provided to me that evening, and I had an opportunity to read it beforehand. I didn't know they were going to ask that question, but, it's really about how they operate. This is really procedurally how they operate, which ours has nothing to do with that. So I explained the difference between the two documents. And then there was a question about the very first bullet on our document. It says, I will be present for required meetings, which is a definitive statement, and that several, have already missed meetings over the time they've been on it or knew they were going to miss a meeting. And so they felt like they would be signing something that they knew that they would be in violation of at some point. But the way I handled that was to say that it is our expectation that when we appoint people to any board and commission, that they set aside that time on their calendar and try to protect it to the extent that they can. And we are certainly recognize that things are going to come up either in their business or family that prohibits them. And in this particular case, of course, planning and zoning tends to have more meetings than any other board and commission has. So there is some possibility that they would be people who would miss meetings. But that what we were really trying to say was what our intention was in the actual appointment of what we were doing. The one thing I did notice in their rules and regulations, though, that I either missed before or didn't understand it as definitive as it is, they talk about attendance of their members in their rules and regulations, and they indicate more than 4 unexcused absences within 1 year may result in a member's removal by the commission, by the council. Well, I've never thought 4 was, I don't recall of us ever having that kind of a discussion. And when we look at attendance, it's never been brought to my attention that they were, in their own regulations, allowed to miss 4. So it's something I think the administrative team should look at discussing and making a decision about. Do we really want to? In their case, right now, they are generally meeting every other week. So let's say they meet 11 months out of the year. There's 22 meetings in a year, or 20, let's say, because they probably cancel some meetings along the way. But at any rate, I think it's something, Rick, we might want to put on our.
Is that merely, I recall that those rules, because I was chair of P&Z for quite a while, I thought it said unexcused absences?
It does say unexcused, but who's to define what's unexcused?
The chair.
Yeah. I mean, and, in our case, when we're getting an attendance record, we're not given that. We're just that, Susie Jones missed these 3 dates, and we're assuming they were excused unless we, find out something different. It's just something I think the administrative team might want to take a look at.
The governor's office has, for their boards and commissions throughout the state of Ohio, has a percentage that's applied. I want to say it's 65% or 70. There is a number of the number of meetings that are scheduled. So if you miss more than whatever that is, then.
Yeah, and that makes a little more sense at a state level because you have travel issues and all that. We definitely wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to use that kind of a.
I don't know what the right number is.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It's the way they structured it, so.
And I just wanted to say that what Greg was reinforcing the meeting last week at Sauda, it was an excellent 22 people, I counted them, 22 citizens came to that meeting and were really the houses that were right on Bright Road and McDuff and that whole area there that is impacted by Emerald Parkway. They had excellent questions, and I would say that the only thing I had any concern about, which was not a concern, it's too strong of a word, but I was telling Paul afterwards that they were so great in answering all the questions so directly that if we now deviate from what that answer was, we probably want to let them know right away, because we may find out something that changes, just because it changes. And then I had Ann make copies of things that are at your desk here. Rick and I had the opportunity to go last week to a luncheon at La Scala where Jeremiah spoke, and Brent Crawford spoke, and these were handouts that they gave. And I thought that they might be interesting for you to review and be part of our goal-setting discussion. Thank you.
Very good. Tim?
I'd like to add my congratulations to personnel in the police department, both the police officers and civilians who received awards and recognition. Also, coincidentally, with respect to the sidewalk maintenance program memo, Paul, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. You know, it's great that we do this. At the same time, it's frustrating to me. You know, with respect, I look at some of these subdivisions in here, and just a couple that jump out, you know, and you know, I certainly could be mistaken, but, you know, Wellington Place and Ballantrae, for example. It's just frustrating to me that subdivisions that are no older than these subdivisions are, that we're going in and we're having to spend money on these sidewalk repairs. Now, I know, you know, certainly has been the case with some of the older subdivisions. We've had issues with tree roots, and so we've attempted to correct that, you know, by planting, you know, at least in the newer subdivisions, different species, you know, that didn't cause upheaval to the sidewalks and so forth. I think we've widened the width of the tree lawns and so forth. So, you know, I think I've suggested, and you know, again, maybe it's not practical. I just don't know if there is a means by which we can have a stricter inspection on the front end, or a higher standard or something like that, or maybe it just, you know, maybe this is just can't be avoided, and we have to spend, you know, between $250,000 and $500,000 every year to repair sidewalks.
Yeah, we have talked about this before, and again, probably 80 to 90% of what we correct is tree root damage. So yes, the efforts over the years to increase both the tree lawn width and to select different species of trees has had an impact and made a difference. And certainly there's more need out there than presently we have funding for in the capital program. I think we can have that discussion again as we update the CIP. And then the other portion that we deal with is just damage, routine wear and tear, cracks, trench settlement, you name it, that we go around and fix. And as we've said before, we really do try and cluster those repairs into into a unified area, so that we're just impacting one neighborhood in a summer, and then in and out, and then move on to another neighborhood. But again, we're going to continue those repairs this spring, and then continue to evaluate that program.
I'll follow up with you with respect to, I see Hemingway Village in here, and those of us who were pounding the pavement this past fall got, you know, first-hand experience with sidewalks and their condition and so forth, and certainly some in Hemingway Village.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
We are above and beyond most communities. I don't know of anybody else that pays for this. Most of it's assessed and put on a tax lien, and the homeowner or business is required to make that repair. So just another advantage to being in Dublin.
It's just frustrating to me, Mike.
Oh, I
that
understand.
In my subdivision, you know, which is now, you know, 20-plus years old, at least the early phases, you know, I had, you know, a sidewalk, you know, my property that, I don't think it's exceeded 2 inches yet or whatever, but I mean, you know, in less than 10 years, you know, the sidewalk was heaving. You know, and it suggests to me, you know, some issue with the installation. And I want to be clear, you know, for the benefit of the public, the city isn't doing this. The installation is done by the developer.
Correct.
You know, and so
It almost begs the question, at the initial installation, is there something they can do to remove the tree root, or to cut it back without damaging the tree?
Well, mind you, in the case of, you know, Wyndham Village, no trees.
There's no trees. The trees go in after the sidewalk installation, the sidewalk happens with the new home construction.
Well, you either have trees or straight sidewalks, I guess, one or the other, huh? Or do what we're doing.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Rick?
When you go second to last, most things have already been said, so I do want to commend all the police officers who were recognized by the department and the chief. It's a great group of guys over there. And Marilee, I had the same experience with respect to the code of conduct with the ARB. They looked at me like I was from Mars, which can't be true, but they had no clue, absolutely none. So I imagine I'll experience this tomorrow night with CSAC, and Greg, maybe you experienced them when you've done BZA. And I hope that's coming up, or it's coming up. So maybe a little more communication there. And I agree with you, Marilee. I think one of our upcoming administrative committee meetings, we can talk more about kind of putting together and integrating these requirements for attendance, and make sure that it's consistent across the board and define between excused, unexcused, if we're going that way or whatever. Other than that, we'll finalize the retreats agenda here in the next couple of days, and I also want to thank Megan for the report on the snow removal. Had a lot of calls, but I think most people fully understood what was going on, and believe me, if you were driving outside of the city into other jurisdictions like I was, you really appreciate what we do even in the worst of times. So thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thanks, Rick. I just wanted to say a special thanks to everybody on the Admit Committee, Marilee, Greg, and Rick, for the work on the reviews that we've got forthcoming and our upcoming goal setting. So moved along very quickly, and I appreciate that effort. Also, just a note that Willow Grove, that's not, the noise wall meeting is going to be Wednesday, February 12th.
Wednesday, at the rec center. Just
as a note, at Dublin Rec Center, Tala 2 at 6 p.m. So I suspect we'll have some people out that will be interested. I guess there's a need for that now because of the ramping, as I understand it, for the new configuration at the I-270-33 interchange. So you'll probably have a good turnout. I suspect Paul will be there or some of his representatives. I'm going to try and stop by there myself to see what kind of turnout.
We'll also have representatives from ODOT that will be there. And information, the letter was sent to all the directly impacted residents as well as the homeowners association, so that everybody in their homeowners association can be made aware of.
Good. And other than that, I just warn everybody that Valentine's Day, those that need to know about this, is on Friday. And with that, we'll stand adjourned.